Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. So, we're going to continue our discussion about reincarnation and recalling past lives. We were talking about different religious viewpoints of reincarnation, how different cultures have viewed reincarnation throughout the ages. Among the ancient Greeks, Socrates, Pythagoras, and Plato made reincarnation an integral part of their teachings. Socrates said, "I am confident that there truly is such a thing as living again, and that the living spring from the dead." Pythagoras claimed that he could remember his past lives, and Plato presented detailed accounts of reincarnation in his major works. Plato stated that the pre-existence of the soul in a celestial world and its fall into a human body due to sin, in order to be liberated from its bondage and return to a state of pure being, the soul needed to be purified through reincarnation. That kind of goes back to that idea that we talked about in the mystery religions, that we were the bodies atoning for the sins of the gods. I thought that was an interesting twist there. I really don't want to atone for someone else's sins or whatever. Reincarnation appeared in Jewish mystical thought after the Talmud. The idea of reincarnation became popular in folk belief and is found in much Yiddish literature. In Hebrew, the word Gilgul means cycle. Souls are seen to cycle through lives or incarnations and being attached to different human bodies over time. Which body they associate with depends on their particular task in the physical world, spiritual levels of the bodies of predecessors, and so on. The concept relates to the dynamic of ascending lights and descending vessels from generation to generation. And that resonates with me, this, that we choose our body for the particular task. I often think of us as even choosing our astrological portal so that we're imbued with the characteristics and orientation that we need in order to best take on our mission here on planet Earth. Among some of the Kabbalists, it was thought that human souls could end up being reincarnated into non-human bodies. And I've actually found that to be true in readings. It was something way outside my thought range before. I would never have considered the concept that people would reincarnate as an animal, or that animals could reincarnate as people, but it's just become evident. And in some of the other episodes, I talk about some examples of that. But the belief is also common in Orthodox Judaism. There's an entire work called The Gate of Reincarnations. That's Orthodox Judaism. It's called The Gate of Reincarnations, and it describes in depth the laws of reincarnation. One concept is that the idea of a Gilgul or cycle is paralleled physically by pregnancy. So you could kind of use the process of pregnancy as a cycle of reincarnation, creation, development, and rebirth. Orthodox prayer books often have a nightly prayer asking for forgiveness for sins that one might have committed in this Gilgul or previous one, the previous cycle. The Kabbalah, which is an ancient mystical teaching of the Jewish faith, the Kabbalah is filled with references to reincarnation that are thousands of years old. So this isn't a new concept here. Reincarnation also appears in Norse mythology, in the poetic Edda or Edda, the belief in reincarnation that was probably commonplace among the Vikings. It's an intrinsic part of many Native American and Inuit traditions as well. Ancient shamans and tribal groups worldwide have long believed that a traumatic experience within the realm of our inner self can serve as a catalyst for the truth seeker to move beyond the illusions of the little self and enter the unity of the greater whole, sort of along the lines of that Kundalini awakening where the energy rises up the spine and we become aware of our connection to the wholeness of things. And Bernard Alvarez, the host of the previous show here on Revolution Radio, has written a book called The Book of One, and he channeled it in the 90s. It's a very heady book, very deep. It's not a quick read, but it's not difficult. It's just profound. You might find it interesting about how we are all one. Reincarnation is at the core of the doctrine of Spiritism. According to Spiritists, the evolution of the soul is one of the main laws of the universe. It can't be stopped. It can only be delayed. Spirits have new chances to learn and evolve by reincarnating into new bodies. Forgetfulness of the past, including previous lives, is a gift which souls get a chance to overcome. We come back so that we can overcome our past and pay our debts to our enemies and to ourselves and to people that we have affronted or hurt, and also acquire newer experiences for the future. The Theosophical Society has taken reincarnation as well as karma as spiritual evolution, and it's one of the cardinal tenets. In the Theosophical worldview, the soul in man is originally pure. Reincarnation is the rhythmic process by which the soul in man unfolds its spiritual powers in the world of form and gets to know itself. First, the soul descends from the spiritual realm to inhabit the baby form, and then while living in a human form, it gathers experience through its effort to express itself in the world. So we come down as a soul from the spiritual realms, we become a baby, and we live in human form, we gain our experiences, and then we try to express ourselves to the world. I just love that expression by Abraham and Esther Hicks, that we're the leading edge of divine self-expression. And one of my friends, we were talking, and her boyfriend had done a study, and so we had a big discussion over a breakfast about what we are when we're in the physical world. Are we an aspect of the universal mind? Are we the leading edge of divine self-expression? The source trying to view itself through the many eyes and experiences of people? How does that all work? And he had done a study. He had done something where he took a television and reflected the view of the television back to the television itself. What was interesting is when he did reflect the perception of a viewer back to the television started breaking its pattern of static into a fractal pattern. And for those of you that are tuned in with quantum physics and string theory and all that kind of thing, the universe is considered to sort of expand on that fractal pattern, that pattern that replicates and continues and changes, and that everything occurs at different scales, that it is the same thing at different levels. So it's just very interesting to think that even in an inanimate object that could be reflected. And many of you are familiar with the Fibonacci design of things, the snail shell and the different patterns within flowers and the curve of our ear and different patterns in nature that also express this sort of expanding pattern there, Fibonacci pattern. So it's just interesting to think about the fact that when we come from these spiritual realms and we become a baby, and that we're living in human form and are gathering experiences through our efforts, that we're trying to express ourselves or see ourselves or perceive things that are bigger than us, and it forms that kind of system. I find it so curious and interesting. After the lifetime is over, according to the Theosophical Society, there is a withdrawal from the physical plane. and successively higher levels of reality in what we call death. It involves a process of purification and assimilation of the wisdom from its past experience. And we've talked in different episodes about the levels. I think you would find it interesting, if you haven't listened to it recently, to listen to a show that I did on life after death. It's on YouTube. And there are different levels of the etheric realm too. So you might see that. They relate to our chakras too. So you might look up that too, if that's of interest to you. But finally, after a cycle of death and purification and assimilating the wisdom from past life experience, having completely withdrawn and let go of all instruments of personal experience, it stands again, the soul stands again in its spiritual and formless nature. We referred earlier to the voidness, the formless nature. And after that process is finished, the soul is ready to begin its next rhythmic manifestation or cycle, and to descend into matter in a new effort that unfolds its spiritual nature again to gain consciousness of divine origin and nature. I just find that so interesting. I know when we pass that we do sort of exchange our bodies, one for another, not necessarily directly, but when we put on a new life, we put on a new form kind of thing. According to Theosophy, that which reincarnates, the piece of us that reincarnates, is the part of man that belongs to the formless, non-material, and timeless worlds. It is neither the physical body and all of its characteristics, nor the emotional nature with all its personal likes and dislikes, nor the mental nature with its accumulated knowledge and its habits of thinking that reincarnate. It's actually that which is above that which reincarnates. And that goes back to that Buddhist concept that even our personality isn't what reincarnates. And we're very attached to our personality because we're in body right now. That's part of our identity, and we can't really imagine ourselves without our identity, especially when we communicate with those on the other side and they have still retained their identity. But at those higher levels of being, we become more and more like the source and less differentiated, which is maybe scary to think about for some people, but for others it's very freeing because it's like wiping the slates clear, and then our consciousness is continued through another process. Maybe consciousness is a strong word. It's maybe not even that much of us. Maybe it is just our perception and our soul knowledge. And of course, we forget a lot of that when we come back. So this formlessness of non-material and timeless worlds is the part that reincarnates, according to Theosophy. However, when the formless existence of a human being begins its process of reincarnation, it attracts the old emotional, mental, and energetic karmic patterns, and that helps form the new personality. Thus, the soul, with the added powers that are developed during previous lives and post-mortem life review and process of assimilation, deals with some of the old hindrances or shortcomings that we weren't able to work out in previous lifetimes. For those of you that are not familiar with the concept of a life review is something that occurs when we go back out of body, and we don't have to experience it immediately. A lot of people think it's light at the end of the tunnel, met by family, meet whatever religious figure is important to you, sit down and have your life review and sing among the angels on the clouds or something for the rest of eternity. But it's really not that way, according to the many people that have crossed over that I've talked to, and many near-death experiences that people have had, and other mediums sharing their stories of what they've encountered on the other side too. Our life review is something that I believe we're able to take on when we're ready. I do think that there are souls that reincarnate without any concern for going through the life review, or that go through too quickly after going through it so they don't have time to process what they experience. They just want to continue again. The life review it's a very sacred process where you look over the lifetime that you've had, and you don't only experience your life as if you were that person again, but you experience it as if you were the other people that your life touched. So, for instance, you would experience what your behavior was like to your parents, to your children, to your loved ones, to your enemies, etc. And you wouldn't only see it from their perspective, but you would experience it as if you were those other people. None of us is without error. We have all done things that we regret. We've yelled at our dogs or kids, or done something that we know hurt somebody else because we were feeling angry, or there are things that we do that we're not proud of. And so experiencing them again as that other person is not an easy thing to think about. But what it does, since there is no type of judgment per se on the other side, there's no one standing over you telling you what a good or bad person you were. There's just this experience of the truth of your life, no denial, no repression, just how it was. For some people, they're going to not realize how much pain they caused. And for other people, they're going to realize that they actually had a really positive effect on other people, far beyond anything that they realized that they were doing. That awareness that collective experience brings to us creates enlightenment and a higher view, a higher consciousness. For some people, when they come back, they feel like they have to atone for things that they've done because they didn't realize how hurtful it was, what they did, and they feel like it would be only right for them to either suffer or to be put in a similar situation. I don't think self-harm is ever a good thing, and learning to respect our bodies and to love our bodies and ourselves to where we don't need to do that anymore is really an important process. Other people come back because they've learned and they just want to try it from the new perspective when they come back. And it isn't immediate when people come back. It could be many years, it could be hundreds of years. Some people say 300 years. It's more rare for someone to reincarnate. We travel in soul groups, so it's more rare for people to break out of a soul group to reincarnate as another character in that soul group before that soul group in its entirety passes on to graduation. But it does occur. It is rare. A lot of times when people think that someone has reincarnated, they didn't actually reincarnate in the new baby. Like the grandmother is not in the new baby as a soul that's rebirthed. It's just that the baby is aware of the grandmother's presence and is reflecting behaviors, maybe has some similar traits of personality too, and it might be good to take a deeper look to see if that's actually really the grandmother, or whether it's the baby or even animal reflecting the behavior of that person that lived before, that soul that lived before. You see it among animals too. You see animals acting out the behavior of previous pets because animals are also psychic and also mediums. I really feel like the term psychic and medium is kind of old. I don't know what a better term would be, but I just think that it represents aspects of our abilities as humans that we have neglected for a long time. And I'm hoping that our planet will be accessing and opening those abilities up, because when we have those abilities full throttle, then we have compassion and understanding and lack of conflict, which would be such a good thing for the planet, don't you think? But going on, we have Ekankar. Ekankar is a philosophical mix of Eastern and Western thought. Reincarnation is the basis of the teaching that the soul is eternal and that either chooses an incarnation for growth or that an incarnation is given to it because of karma. And the soul is perfected through a series of incarnations until it arrives at personal mastery. I don't know, like, I don't disagree heartily, but I do kind of shy away from the concept that we're being punished, because I really fiercely hold on to the concept that when we're out of body, that we have free will, not to hurt other people, obviously, because that would be a violation of their will, but that the things that we really wish for and hope for are there and easy to access and manifested at the speed of thought. And we're able to multi-locate and do different things in the out-of-body state that we're not able to do in the physical state. So I'm not sure that I like the idea that we come back because of karma. I guess that could explain some of the reluctant souls that are here feeling that they're just slogging through life and really having a difficult time. But I kind of think that that's like blaming people for, like, well, you did something shitty in a past life, so now you've got to suffer. It's karma. I just don't like that concept any more than I like the idea of heaven and hell and eternal punishment. I just feel that it's a violation of our will, maybe because I was raised in a biblical tradition where, God doesn't violate your will. And now that I've taken it to an esoteric level, I still, from what I've experienced, believe that no one is violating the will of anyone else when we're out of body, unless it's in an extremely low state. And even then, I think there's some will involved in that. So I don't know what you think about that, but that's what I think about that. Earlier in the show, Dr. Brian Weiss had a client named Catherine, and she was in the in-between state. And that's the realm where souls stay in when they wait for their soul family to join them. And in that place, personalities really are retained. As we get higher and higher and back to source, we do become less differentiated, not because of our perception, but because the differences are less important and our light becomes brighter and brighter, and it just becomes harder to discern the differences of personality because it's not as important for us to be differentiated because we are all one. You often find that with guides. They might not find it important to give you a name, or they might not even differentiate themselves according to gender. They might be both or neither, in those categories, sort of like an angelic. For the practicality of learning, they will usually allow you to have a name so that you have some kind of signifier to call them by, something to refer to them by, because we are in the physical world and it's easy to use a name or a concept to describe that entity that we're connected to. I had a student who, her guide came through. She came from a Buddhist tradition. Her guide was referred to as the One. I had her go deeper and push a little bit, and the guide agreed to divide into both a male and a female manifestation and gave names for each way of that. And I found it fascinating. So I would consider the guide a very high guide because it didn't feel the need to differentiate itself, but then again was willing to comply. Names have vibrations, and when we speak them, they resonate, and that's an easy way since we speak words in the physical realm. Welcome back. If you missed the first half of the show, we're talking about reincarnation and recalling past lives. If you would like to listen to the show in its entirety in the future, or any of our other episodes, you'll find them on YouTube. I offer private readings and private psychic tutoring or mediumship tutoring. I generally teach that by Skype for the students, and I generally do readings by phone or here in my office in Roanoke, Virginia. I am starting a certification program for professional psychic mediums. It is designed to prepare you for entering the field of psychic mediumship so that you're armed and dangerous by the time you get there and through that. It's a very thorough exposure to the concepts, and it has a huge amount of live practice. The classes are small. They're limited to a maximum of 15 people, and they're taught via webinar, live webinar, and there are lots of assignments and interesting exercises to do. So have your psychic knuckles thoroughly cracked by the time you get going with the program. I hope that that will interest some of you out there. In the last segment, we were talking about different views of reincarnation, philosophies of reincarnation, and you probably now know more about reincarnation, probably more than you need. But I hope you enjoyed learning and found it interesting. I really love seeing life from different perspectives, and obviously, if you're listening, you do too. So I wanted to get into some techniques for recalling past lives. How do you recall a past life? And sometimes it will happen spontaneously for you. Sometimes just you'll meet a person and you'll get like a little flashback that isn't, you just know it's a memory. You just know that it's a memory. And sometimes you'll dream it. You may have a dream of being somewhere else, functioning as someone else. There are other ways to access it, and I'm going to be talking about some methods that are discussed in a book written by Richard Webster. The book is called Past Life Memories, 12 Proven Methods. I'm going to read some from the book, and I think that it's overall a pretty good way of accessing past life memories if you wanted to do concrete exercises. I'm going to list the 12 methods, and then I'm going to go into detail on a few of them just because I know your curiosity is unbounded and you have to know. So I will tell you what they are. The first one is that you can dream them through lucid dreaming. Set your intent, log the results. The second way that you can recall past lives is doing meditation that's called a far memory recall, and you can go backwards and detail your memories, and you keep going back to a memory that was just before that, and then what happened before that, and you can go on back and pass to your memories of being a baby in the womb, and then go past even that. So, and you might want to take that in stages. Past life regression, you can go to someone that offers past life regression. I'm not a big fan. I'm not like throwing up a flag and saying, no, don't ever do that. It's terrible, because I believe that the people that do offer it have a good intent. But do remember that when you're in a hypnotically induced state that you are suggestible, and that it's more than just the words of the person. It's the personality and vibration of the person, and sometimes some of the things that are going on in their life currently that we become open to, just like reading somebody. So, protect yourself, ask for your guides and angels to only allow the highest and best good. Set your intent high if you're going to go that avenue. It's really not as natural as doing it in your own meditation, which you absolutely can. You don't really need the thoughts and energies of a clinician to superimpose you while you're trying to access another past life. And there are reasons, too, that we might not want to remember all of our past lives, because, as we discussed earlier in the show, it can be traumatic to relive or to re-experience some of those things if you are actually in the process of that. So sometimes getting someone to do a past life reading is a little bit gentler, because your medium, I know I love to do readings like this. I go over people's past lives and then weave them together to explain why some of the things that are going on in their life are the way that they are, and look at some of their strengths and look at some of their weaknesses and see how that all fits together to create their current worldview. It's a little bit less traumatic than experiencing it all, but it's not wrong to experience them. So don't be too afraid, but just always remember in any exercise to call on your angels and guides, whether you know them or not. Just ask for their protection. You should be fine. The fourth method is scrying, and that is using water or a black mirror or a crystal ball to recall them. Exercise number 5 is TikTok. It's self-hypnosis, again, less pure. Basically, you listen to the tick-tock of a clock and recall hearing the clock tick at different times in this life, and then go on back in time. And that's not one of my favorite techniques, but it's listed. So dreaming, far memory recall, past life regression, scrying, and that's SCRY, scrying, TikTok, and then number 6 is talent. And that would be to meditate on your skills and talents and fascinations, your favorite countries or time periods, and just relax and think about them, and then go back to previous times that you might have had that talent. And it's pretty easy to connect and weave back that way to other lives where you might have done some of the same things you're doing now. And those are all on a positive note there. Dowsing, you can use pendulum or rods to ask questions first for this life, to tune it, to tune the pendulum or the rods, and then other things that jump into your mind, like name, where you lived, what age were you, what gender, have that confirmed by a pendulum. There's a rainbow number technique that's a progressive relaxation. Basically, you see a rainbow and you enter at the highest point, and the colors spell out in the spectrum of a rainbow. They spell out the name Roy G. Biv: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So you would start with the violet and go down in reverse into the red to experience past lives and bring yourself back up. Number 9 is just using your imagination, and people are afraid of that. They're like, well, I might just make it up, or, well, that's just crazy, or how would I know if it's real? But our imagination is our link to the subconscious world, and just like looking at clouds or looking at a tarot card, starting to make associations, you'll find that you're quite accurate if you allow your subconscious to speak. So imagination is not a problem there. Then you can explore your Akashic records, leave your body and approach the Akashic records, ask the keeper to open the door, ask for what you want, and explore your record. And then there's a method called feeling technique, which is when you relax your body awareness in this lifetime and you experience an emotion that you'd like to understand from previous lifetimes when you had that emotion, and maybe that will give you some depth of understanding, like it would in a reading of, like, why do I feel this way about myself? Some people maybe have a fear that they might pass before the age of 30, or that they'll always be alone, or something like that, which might not line up with this life. Well, it might be that it's residual memory from another life. So give yourself the opportunity to explore that without fear. It's okay to feel emotions. Emotions aren't going to kill you. They may not be comfortable, but they're just emotions. They will pass. So connecting that, you could always pick positive emotions. You don't always have to pick like, how did I die, or what did I suffer, or you can look at positive things too, where your strengths and your confidence, and when did you feel confident in another lifetime? And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. The other way is to get the help of your guides. And I think that I would have listed some of these methods: the far memory recall, probably the dreaming, focusing on your talents, exploring the Akashic records, maybe. The feeling technique I hadn't thought of, but I really like that. I guess that would be good. And this final one, of course, is one that I would totally recommend, using the help of your guides. And you can just sit with them and ask them to help you recall your past life, and you can use whatever method is easiest for you. Some of you are writers, so you might just allow yourself to write what comes to mind and don't really pay too much attention to it. Just write as you hear and feel and sense. Others might draw, and find themselves drawing pictures of places and people and things. Or you might just speak. You might record your voice and just allow yourself to freely do that. So the first technique that I thought that I would share with you is conscious dreaming. And I want to say that lucid dreaming does take practice. Pretty much everyone can do it, but there is a reason sometimes that we don't remember our dreams, because sometimes the education of our soul comes in that same realm that our past life memories or our between life memories are. Just something to think about, that if you don't access them, it's perfectly okay. But if you do, then it's cool. So I'm going to read again. This is Past Life Memories, 12 Proven Methods by Richard Webster, like the Webster Dictionary. I don't think it's the same guy, however. All right. So conscious dreaming is similar to lucid dreaming. In fact, a conscious dream frequently turns into a lucid dream. In a lucid dream, you become aware that you are dreaming and then proceed to direct the dream. In conscious dreaming, you are awake and direct your thoughts toward whatever your purpose may be. Go to bed at your usual time, close your eyes, and relax. It is important that you are not overtired and that you have not consumed too much food or drink. Think about your desire to explore one of your past lives. Allow different thoughts to flow through your mind. Avoid any negative thoughts. If you find yourself thinking along those lines, simply let them go. Tell yourself that you'll worry about them tomorrow and have better things to do now. I actually wouldn't even try to worry about them tomorrow, but that's okay. So when you feel completely relaxed, think about different events that have happened in your life and visualize your surroundings as they occurred. You might choose events when you were away from home and the surroundings were more exotic than usual. And this is him speaking. I invariably think about my visit to the temple near Athens, whenever I do this exercise. It doesn't matter what events you think about as long as they are positive ones and you can visualize the surroundings. Go back as far in your life as you possibly can. If you return all the way to early childhood and nothing triggers a response to your mind, stop concentrating on your surroundings and focus instead on the faces, sounds, and feelings that pop into your mind. You might find that one particular scene captures your attention more than others. If this occurs, focus on it and see where it takes you. You may find that it transports you into a lucid dream that relates to a past life. If it doesn't appear to lead anywhere, let it go and return to the present. Sometimes conscious dreaming of this sort meanders for a while, and then quite suddenly you will be literally sucked into a lucid dream of one of your previous lifetimes. Frequently you will drift off to sleep before this conscious dreaming leads you to a lucid dream. When you wake up in the morning, however, you will probably have a strong recall of events that took place in a past life. So you get the idea. Each of these techniques has its own process, but they're very similar to that. It's basically relax yourself. It's the same method that I recommend in the protocol, which is clear your space, ground yourself, connect to higher vibrations, and set your intent and work and close your energies down. Well, we have come to the end of our show, and I just want to thank you so much for listening. Remember, it's never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing.